If this message reaches you, it is meant for you. For anyone seeking inner peace today, you are not the mind. Listen. They called him dangerous. They called him a threat. They called him a heretic, a humble friar. A simple man with dusty sandals and gentle eyes stood before the most powerful institution of his time and whispered a truth so intimate, so liberating, so terrifyingly beautiful, that it made kings nervous, priests angry, and ordinary people feel, for the first time, truly alive. He said, "Heaven is not a place you go after death. Heaven is a state you awaken to while you live." Imagine how frightening that must have been for those who claimed ownership of God. Imagine being told your entire life that you must follow rituals, confess sins to the correct authority, obey rules crafted by men who never knew your struggles, only to hear a quiet voice say, "What you're searching for is already inside you." That voice cost him everything, but it awakened thousands. And centuries later, it might be awakening you. This message is for the person who feels numb inside, the one who hides their exhaustion behind a smile, the one who prays quietly before bed wondering if anyone hears, the one who hasn't felt peace in months or years, the one who carries childhood wounds into adulthood, the one who's trying, really trying to become better. If any part of that is you, stay exactly where you are. You're about to walk into a story that holds a mirror to your soul. 1. The radical truth. God is not far. God is inside. To understand just how explosive his message was, you have to understand the world he lived in. In his time, the church wasn't just a place of worship. It was government. It was law. It was the voice of right and wrong. And your connection to the divine? That wasn't yours. It was theirs. They controlled the bridge. They controlled the map. They controlled the language of salvation. Until one man, quiet, humble, deeply contemplative, whispered, "You do not need a bridge. You are the bridge." It was like setting fire to a dry forest. He said God wasn't a distant king sitting above the clouds, watching from afar. God wasn't an external judge recording your failures in a celestial notebook. God was the silent presence watching your thoughts even as you think them. God was the awareness beneath your fear. God was the breath you take when you're too tired to cry. Real American story. The grocery store father. Let me tell you about a man in Pittsburgh, a father named Daniel. He worked 2 jobs. His marriage was falling apart. He was behind on rent, behind on sleep, behind on hope. One night in a grocery store, pushing a cart filled with ramen noodles and off-brand cereal, his little daughter asked, "Daddy, are we going to be okay?" He didn't know the answer. He felt his throat tighten, his chest clamp shut. And for the first time in a long time, he closed his eyes, just for a moment. One breath, and something happened. Something small, but real. Not a voice, not a miracle. Just a quiet presence, a warmness in the chest, a steadiness in the breath, a sense that he was not alone in this impossible life. In that breath, he felt God, not as a concept, not as a sermon, but as a living presence. The mystic would have smiled at that moment. He would have said, "There, that is the doorway. Wherever you find stillness, you find God." And just like that, Daniel didn't feel strong, but he didn't feel alone. Sometimes that's enough. 2. The uncreated part of you. The divine core. The mystic said there is something inside you that cannot be harmed, cannot be broken, cannot be stained by regret or sin. A part of you that trauma can't erase, heartbreak can't destroy, shame can't touch, time can't weaken, he called it. The ground of the soul. Other traditions call it the Atman Buddha nature, the divine spark, the inner light. But he spoke from within Christianity, so his words cut deeper. The ground of your soul and the ground of God are one and the same. Do you realize how dangerous that sentence was? To say you and God share the same inner ground, that was spiritual dynamite. And yet, Every person who has ever felt a moment of clarity knows this truth intuitively. Real American story. The nurse who found God in the quiet Samantha, a nurse in Phoenix, once told me something that still gives me chills. She said, "People think the hardest part is the blood, the chaos, the screaming. It's not. The hardest part is keeping your heart open." One night a 7-year-old boy was rushed in. His lips were blue. His mother was screaming. Samantha's hand shook. She was human. But then she did something she always does before acting. She inhaled and let her mind go quiet. She said, "In that silence, there's always something that guides me. It feels like a soft energy in my chest saying, 'Do this, not that. Now move.' I don't feel alone when I listen to it." The mystic would have said, that is the uncreated part of you, where the soul and God breathe in the same rhythm. Why did this idea terrify the church? Think about it. If God is inside you, then no one owns God. No one controls God. No one has the right to tell you how far you are from the divine. No priest can tell you you're unworthy. No institution can monopolize your connection to the sacred. People who awaken to their inner truth are very hard to control. There's a story about an old widow in Richmond named Margaret. She told her neighbor, "I stopped praying for things to happen. Now I pray by sitting still until I feel less afraid." Her neighbor asked, "How do you know God hears you?" She smiled and said, "When I'm quiet long enough, I realize God is the one doing the listening." This is what the mystic meant by the birth of God in the soul. It happens not in cathedrals, but in quiet moments of surrender. God is always shining. You just have to clean the window by removing fear, shame, and overthinking. Real story. The teen who found God at 3 a.m. There was a 16-year-old boy in Kansas named Leo. He had crippling anxiety, panic attacks that left him shaking on the bathroom floor. One night, at 3 a.m., he felt one coming. He collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't think. He couldn't pray. So he did the only thing he could. He put his hand on his chest and whispered, "I'm here. I'm here." Slowly, something softened. Not a voice, not a miracle. Just a presence. Warm, steady, familiar. Later, he wrote in his journal, "It felt like someone I've always known was sitting beside me, breathing slowly until I matched them." When he showed that journal entry to his therapist, she cried. The mystic would have said, that was the birth. That was God being born in the quiet spaces of your suffering. But this, everything you've heard so far, was only the beginning. Because the most dangerous thing he ever taught was not simply that God is within you. Not that the divine spark lives in the quiet of your breath. Not even that heaven begins in this life, not the next. No. The real danger, the truth that made the powerful tremble, was what he revealed after this, a truth so intimate, so liberating, so impossible to control, that they tried not just to silence him, but to erase him from history altogether. And yet, his words survived, his message endured, and today, somehow, it has reached you. If part one has stirred something inside you, a warmth in the chest, a quiet recognition, a feeling you can't explain, then you're already standing at the doorway he spoke of. But beyond that doorway lies the teaching they feared the most. In part two, we enter the heart of his message, the place where he explains exactly how the divine awakens inside the human soul, how God is born within you, and why that inner birth can transform an entire life. If you are ready to go deeper, move to part two. The journey continues there.